Welcome to Gen 1 Rev 22 Ministry, Saturday the 21st of March 2020. Today we're going to be looking at part 3 of Dinosaurs Living Alongside Man, and we are looking for evidence in the Bible as to whether the Bible mentions creatures that could easily be described as dinosaurs. Now, first off, I must mention that the word dinosaur was not penned until the middle of the 19th century by Richard Owen. You can go and check out who Richard Owen was, and he was the first person to pen the word dinosaur. The word dinosaur means large, terrible lizard in Latin. Now, if the word dinosaur was not penned until the middle of the 19th century, that stands to logic that you're not going to find the word dinosaur within the Bible, because the Bible was put together between approximately 1600 BC to 400 BC. That was the Old Testament, and the New Testament was put together just after AD 33, 35, a little bit more further apart from there, up till about the end of the 1st century AD. Plus also the King James Version, which was not in existence until the 17th century, would not have contained the word dinosaur, because obviously it wasn't penned until the middle of the 19th century by Richard Owen, as stated. Now, previous to the 19th century, if people were writing about or recording in their histories what we would today call dinosaurs, or what sound like dinosaurs, then they would have used different words for them. Example: dragon, serpent, etc. And these words would and were used in the Bible to describe creatures that sounded very similar to what we would today call dinosaurs. Now the question is, were dinosaurs recorded in the Bible? Well, dinosaur is a creature, obviously, in the same way a cow is a creature, in the same way all other animals are creatures. We have sea creatures, we have land animals, we have all kinds of different, we have winged creatures, we have lots of different animals living in the world that we live in today. Now, in the book of Genesis, God describes creating all creatures. So therefore, if God created all of the creatures, then if dinosaurs lived alongside man, dragons, large terrible lizards, serpents, then you would expect that God also placed into that description of when he was describing creating all land animals, sea animals, creatures of the air, you would expect that dinosaurs would be encompassed within that description of God having created them. Now, if we look at Genesis 1:24 to 31, we read God creating, and God said, "Let the earth bring forth living creatures according to their kinds, livestock and creeping things and beasts of the earth according to their kinds." And it was so. And God made the beasts of the earth according to their kinds, and the livestock according to their kinds, and everything that creeps on the ground according to its kind. And God saw that it was good. Then God said, "Let us make man in our image, after our likeness, and let them have dominion over the fish of the sea, and over the birds of the heavens, and over the livestock, and over all of the earth, and over every creeping thing that creeps on the earth." So God created man in his own image. In the image of God he created him, male and female he created them. And God blessed them and said to them, be fruitful and multiply and fill the earth and subdue it and have dominion over the fish of the sea and over the birds of the heavens and over every living thing that moves on the earth. So therefore, there we have Genesis 1, 24 to 31. This is read from the English Standard Version. God said, let the earth bring forth living creatures. All living creatures, that's the earth, created from the earth. Living creatures, livestock, creeping things, beasts of the earth according to their kinds, and it was so. And God made the beasts of the earth according to their kinds and the livestock according to their kinds. God created everything and said it was good. So if God created dinosaurs, considering what we understand or what we've been told concerning dinosaurs and our immediate thoughts of those creatures which are brought to the forefront of our minds when we hear the word dinosaur. I mean, we often think of things like, you know, Jurassic Park and those kind of films, and where dinosaurs like T-Rex and all the other kind of different dinosaurs within that movie, they instill a fear for people that, you know, people think, wow, you know, dinosaurs, huge creatures, creatures which were wild, which we would not have been able to go anywhere near, and in most cases that probably would have been the case. So people automatically, it instills fear among people, and not only fear but amazement, or it creates this romantic conception in the minds of people due to what we have been told about dinosaurs in the media, films we've watched, etc. So why would God create creatures so big, so fearsome as we've been told? Surely God wouldn't have created those creatures to live alongside man if he created, you know, why would he create such creatures? Well, he creates such creatures to show his creative ability and how awesome he is, and the kind of variations in his creation. We see the universe, we see the earth, we see the planets, we see the solar systems, we see the stars, we see the wonder of space, which in its hugeness and its vastness. And then we come to Earth and all its creative biological life forms, all its ecosystems, all its natural laws. So God is demonstrating his creativeness and his character with the variations that we see in all of creation. So I would argue, well, that's why God created dinosaurs or serpents or lizards, etc., etc., to show how a whole spectrum of his creativity. Some people, like say, have thought, well, you know, I've questioned whether God would have created dinosaurs because of what I've said and the fact that, you know, they would be quite fearsome to be living alongside man. But there are other creatures in the world that we know of that also live alongside man. We've got which are quite fearsome, etc. We've got tigers, lions, gorillas. I'm sure you can name a few. So just because we have fearsome creatures, we've also got them in the sea. We've got sharks, we've got all huge big creatures, whales, you know, we've got all this vastness of creatures, lots of them fearsome. But originally they wouldn't have been fearsome, but that is another topic. So basically we've got all these creatures that do live alongside man in our present world, which are fearsome. So the arguments of ferocity, if you like, and ferocious creatures living alongside man as to a reason why God wouldn't create dinosaurs is an invalid reason, and it's not a really well thought out reason. So therefore, are dinosaurs in the Bible? And we have one such creature in the book of Job, and it's described in the following way. Job chapter 40 verses 15 to 24. Look at Behemoth, which I made along with you, and which feeds on grass like an ox. What strength it has in its loins, and what power in the muscles of its belly. Its tail sways like a cedar, the sinews of its thighs are close knit. Its bones are tubes of bronze, its limbs like rods of iron. It ranks first among the works of God, yet its maker can approach it with his sword. The hills bring it their produce, and all the wild animals play nearby. Under the lotus plant it lies, hidden among the reeds in the marsh. The lotuses conceal it in their shadow, the poplars by the stream surround it. A raging river does not alarm it. It is secure, though the Jordan should surge against its mouth. Can anyone capture it by the eyes, or trap it and pierce its nose? So therefore, we've got a creature called Behemoth, which is being described, and it's in the book of Job, as already stated. Now God says to Job, this is a creature which I made along with you, I made with you. And as I've stated already in the book of Genesis, that God made all the creatures, so therefore if it can be demonstrated that dinosaurs, serpents, etc. lived alongside man, then that stands to reason that God created them as he described in creation week and as described in the book of Genesis. And God says here, which I made along with you. So we've got God saying that this creature was made at the beginning, at the same time approximately as man. It's described, it says it feeds on grass. It says it's got huge strength in its loins, its power muscles of its belly, its tail sways like a cedar. So this creature's got a huge tail, the cedar here is describing like a cedar tree. So it must be huge to sway like a cedar tree. Very slow moving and wave-like movements. Its thighs are close knit, its bones are tubes of bronze, its limbs like rods of iron. You know, it ranks first among the works of God. So this creature is huge, and it ranks first among the creatures of God. More than likely the biggest creature that God has made. You know, the hills bring it its produce. The wild animals play nearby. You know, there's wild animals nearby. They don't go near it. You wouldn't want to go near this creature. It lays under the lotus plants, and the poplars by the stream around it. A raging river does not alarm it. It is secure through the Jordan, though the Jordan should surge around its mouth. Nobody can capture it, or trap it, or pierce its nose. So this is one of the creatures described in the Bible as what we could easily say, well, yeah, this sounds like a huge dinosaur-like creature. We also have a creature which is called Leviathan. This is also found in the book of Job, and this is a sea creature, probably, you know, and once you've heard what this creature is capable of, and if you were to apply honestly the application to what we're being told dinosaurs liked, or certain dinosaurs or sea creatures that died out 60 to 70 million years ago, supposedly, according to evolutionary theory, then we have to admit this creature doesn't sound anything like what we know to be around today. Can you, Job 41, can you pull in Leviathan with a fish hook or tie down its tongue with a rope? Can you put a cord through its nose or pierce its jaw with a hook? Will it keep begging you for mercy? Will it speak to you with gentle words? Will it make an agreement with you for you to take it as your slave for life? Can you make a pet of it like a bird, or put it on a leash for the young women in your house? Will traders barter for it? Will they divide it up among the merchants? Can you fill its hide with harpoons or its head with fishing spears? If you lay a hand on it, you will remember the struggle and never do it again. Any hope of subduing it is false. The mere sight of it is overpowering. No one is fierce enough to rouse it. Who then is able to stand against me? Who has a claim against me that I must pay? Everything under heaven belongs to me. I will not fail to speak of Leviathan's limbs, its strength and its graceful form. Who can strip off its outer coat? Who can penetrate its double coat of armour? Who dares open the doors of its mouth, ringed about with fearsome teeth? Its back has rows of shields tightly. When it rises up, the mighty are terrified. They retreat before its thrashing. The sword that reaches it has no effect, nor does the spear or the dart or the javelin. Iron it treats like straw, and bronze like rotten wood. Arrows do not make it flee. Sling stones are like chaff to it. A club seems to it but a piece of straw. It laughs at the rattling of the lance. Its undersides are jagged potsherds, leaving a trail in the mud like a threshing sledge. It makes the depths churn like a boiling cauldron, and stirs up the sea like a pot of ointment. It leaves a glistening weight behind it. One would think the deep had white hair. Nothing on earth is its equal, a creature without fear. It looks down on all that are haughty. It is king over all that are proud. So clearly we've got a description here of a creature that sounds just like some of these creatures which we can see and hear about in museums and read about in books, which have been called dinosaurs, large terrible lizards. And it's got rows of shields tightly sealed together. Its snorting throws out flashes of light. Its eyes are like the rays of dawn. So this creature throws out flashes of light, probably fire. Flames stream from its mouth. Sparks of fire shoot out. Smoke pours from its nostrils as from a boiling pot over burning reeds. Its breath sets coals ablaze and flames dart from its mouth. Strength resides in its neck. Dismay goes before it. The folds of flesh are tightly joined. They are firm and immovable. So we've got clearly a description there of a creature which breathes fire, flames and smoke comes out of its nostrils. It's got shields on its body to protect it. It's got spikes on its back. No one will go near it. Precisely how, when we read of dinosaurs or hear the word dinosaur, they are the kind of emotions invoked by the word dinosaur. You know, awesomeness, awe, amazement, fear, trembling, just total admiration for the power of these creatures would have had. So we've got two there. We've got, going back to Behemoth, we've got Leviathan, a creature called Leviathan. Like I say, they wouldn't have been called dinosaurs because the word dinosaur wasn't penned until the 19th century. And in fact, they gave these, they were so familiar with them, these creatures, they actually gave them a name: Behemoth, Leviathan. And we'll see that throughout the Bible. There are other mentions in other books of the Bible of these creatures called, especially Leviathan, along with Behemoth. So as I say, they're familiar creatures to people who have lived in the past in different cultures, and they're recorded in the Bible. You know, some people have tried to say, well, these creatures which are being described in the Bible, especially they'll try and come along with to do away or to come up with really silly explanations for what these creatures could be that we read about in the Bible. And I'm just going to draw up some, bring up some explanations that some people have given. Some have tried claiming that Behemoth was a hippopotamus. Now, if whoever is trying to claim that Behemoth was a hippopotamus can draw similarities between the tail of a hippopotamus and the tail described belonging to Behemoth, which is described as a cedar swaying, then I'm all ears. But until they can draw those similarities between a hippopotamus's tail and Behemoth's tail, as well as all the other factors, I mean, a hippopotamus clearly isn't the biggest of all of animals on this planet. We need to just see the stupidity of that claim, and people will grasp at anything to dismiss what are clearly being described as dinosaurs, serpents, large terrible lizards, dragons in the Bible. They will look for any reason to dismiss them. Some of them have said, oh, it's an elephant. Well, the same again. Look at the tail of an elephant to the tail of this creature. You know, elephants may be one of the biggest or the biggest land creatures around on the earth at the moment. And that's probably where they get these conclusions from. So just to try to call this an elephant, then again, look at the tail. It's just an impossibility for this creature Behemoth to have been an elephant or a hippopotamus or anything of that kind that is on this planet today. There's just nothing on this planet today that you would be able to equate to being Behemoth. Also, some have tried to call it a water ox. You know, same thing. You know, they just come up with anything to try to dismiss what is written in the Bible describing what we would easily fall into being a category of dinosaurs. Now, I don't really think there's anything concerning Leviathan. I mean, if anybody tries to equate Leviathan with any creature other than a dinosaur, for me, well, they're really scratching at straws, aren't they? You know, there's just no way that is anything other than what we would know as a dinosaur. If you ask any child who gave that description of Leviathan in Job chapter 41, and let any child listen to it without telling them that came from the Bible as well, to even have more of an impact, if you just said, what does this sound like to a child? I'm quite adamant they would look at you and they would say, a dinosaur. So, you know, if a child can see it, then surely we who are adults who claim to be wiser and more knowledgeable than children should also be able to see it. We also have descriptions of, like say, it's using the word dragon, serpent, because the word wouldn't have been penned. So if the word dinosaur would have been around at that time in the Latin, then it would have been using more than likely the word dinosaur. Ezekiel 32 verses 1 to 2, On the first day of the 12th month in the 12th year, the word of the Lord came to me, saying, Son of man, sing a song of sorrow for Pharaoh, king of Egypt, and say to him, You compared yourself to a young lion among the nations, yet you are like the big dragon in the seas. You go through your rivers, troubling with the water with your feet and making the rivers muddy. So here we've got something very interesting, and that is obviously the king of Egypt is being spoken to. It's about a song to the Pharaoh, king of Egypt, and we've got two clear animals being described in the song. One is a young lion, and the other is a big dragon. So they're comparing the Pharaoh, king of Egypt, as a young lion and a big dragon. So clearly they've seen these creatures. They describe the big dragon as being a big dragon from the seas. You know, it troubles the water, making the rivers muddy. So obviously Pharaoh, king of Egypt, was doing a lot of things, you know, which people looked, and the best description was to describe it using creatures that they witnessed. We also have Ezekiel 29 verses 2 to 3. Son of man, set thy face against Pharaoh, king of Egypt, and prophesy against him, and against all Egypt. Speak and say, Thus saith the Lord God, Behold, I am against thee, Pharaoh, king of Egypt, the great dragon that lieth in the midst of his river, or rivers, which hath said, My river is mine own, and I have made it for myself. So again, Pharaoh, king of Egypt, is being described using the illustration of a great dragon that lieth in the midst of the rivers, which hath said, My river is mine own. You know, so obviously Pharaoh, king of Egypt, wasn't going to let anyone into that river, wasn't going to let anyone take that river, and the same as the great dragon who makes the river his own. Leviathan makes the river his own. So these creatures were clearly seen by these people and used to illustrate and make points. And we have another one, Isaiah 51, 8 to 9. For the moth will devour them as it devours clothing. The worm will eat them as it eats wool. But my righteousness will last forever. My salvation will continue from generation to generation. Wake up, O Lord. Clothe yourself with strength. Flex your mighty right arm. Rouse yourself as in the days of old, when you slew Egypt, the dragon of the Nile. When you slew Egypt, the dragon of the Nile. A perfect illustration of a dragon being used to describe Egypt and how much of a control and how big Egypt were and powerful. The dragon of the Nile. We have also Isaiah 27, 1. In that day the Lord with his hard and great and strong sword will punish Leviathan the fleeing serpent, Leviathan the twisting serpent, and he will slay the dragon that is in the sea. So we've got there another pointer to Leviathan from Job, but this is in Isaiah. Okay, so in Isaiah's time, as well as Job's time, these great dragons of the sea were being witnessed, as in Pharaoh's, king of Egypt's time. So they used them as illustrations. Psalm 104, 24, 26. How many are your words, Lord? In wisdom you made them all. The earth is full of your creatures. There is the sea, vast and spacious, teeming with creatures beyond number, living things both large and small. There the ships go to and fro. And Leviathan, which you formed to frolic there. Then again, in the Psalms, people living at the times of the Psalms would have known these creatures. These creatures were what we clearly would describe as dinosaurs. Psalm 74, 12 to 15. God, my King, is from ancient times performing saving acts on the earth. You divided the sea with your strength. You smashed the heads of the sea monsters in the waters. You crushed the heads of Leviathan. You fed him to the creatures of the desert. You opened up springs and streams. You dried up ever-flowing rivers. Again, these sea creatures and what we would describe as huge serpents, etc., being used to illustrate the power of God, and being used to illustrate, people would have understood the power and the might that was being spoken about with the comparison to these sea creatures. Okay, so I think I've covered quite a lot there concerning what we today would call dinosaurs and what they called in the past throughout human history, when there's been evidences and depictions drawn and written records and accounts of peoples from the past. They would have given the names to these creatures, which when we read about the descriptions to us would come across as being dinosaurs. They would have given them, because the word dinosaur wasn't penned until the 19th century, they would have given them different words: dragons, serpents. So we've got we've looked at there is, are dinosaurs written about in the Bible, and we can put our prejudices aside and say, well, yeah, these sound like dinosaurs, what we're reading about in the Bible that are being described. I've also done part 1 and part 2, dinosaurs living alongside man. I may do another one depending what, obviously, I look back and think I may have missed something, or something new comes to light, or I may do a bit more in depth on what I've already done. Now, as you can see, there are 3 books there, which are great books, and these are books which the authors have gone out of the way and found out the history of man and living alongside dinosaur. And in this one we've got depictions, clear, beautiful, colourful pictures from all over the world, where the author has gone and taken the pictures and compared them to what we've dug out of the ground in the past 200 or so years, and said, well, these looked like, there's no arguing, these are, you know, carved in buildings and all kinds of things, and caves, and drawn in caves and so on. This one also here by Derek Isaacs, I think his name is, and Bill Cooper here. And if you're living in Wales, this one is very good, because he also, in part of the book, talks about Welsh history and links and demonstrates how our genealogies are linked all the way back to Noah and Adam and Eve, and Noah coming off the ark, and the spread of humanity from the region where the ark landed, from the mountains of Ararat, spread all over the world, and he concentrates on where the genealogies, etc., come to us in Wales. So that one, yeah, if you're a Welsh person, then that one may be of even more interest to you. So what does it mean if we can trust the Bible when it tells us, when it tells us about creatures that lived alongside man, which are dinosaurs? If we can trust the Bible in that department, then we can trust it in all the other departments, surely. And we can trust it for the main message of the Bible, and the main message of the Bible is there is no other name under heaven given to men by which we must be saved. The name is Jesus Christ. And the Bible says in Romans 10:9, because if you confess with your mouth that Jesus is Lord and believe in your heart that God raised him from the dead, you will be saved. For with the heart one believes and is justified, and with the mouth one confesses and is saved. For the scripture says, everyone who believes in him will not be put to shame. For there is no distinction between Jew and Greek, for the same Lord is Lord of all, bestowing his riches on all who call on him. For everyone who calls on the name of the Lord will be saved. Romans 10:9 to 13. So, Jesus Christ volunteered himself to come into the world that he created, to take your place and my place on that piece of wood 2,000 years ago, for your sin, your disobedience of God's laws and my disobedience of God's laws, in order to get us right to be back with God. Jesus Christ took our punishment upon himself on that piece of wood. He took our death penalty so that we could have eternal life in God, in Jesus, through Jesus Christ, from what he has done. Jesus Christ is the propitiation for our sin, for our disobedience to God. There's no other way you can get made right with God, only through Jesus Christ. Only through Jesus Christ and what he did 2,000 years ago. Jesus Christ came a first time to deal with sin, to deal with disobedience to God's laws. He's coming a second time as King of Kings and Lord of Lords. Will you be ready? That's the question. That is the question you've got to ask yourself. People say, well, I'm not a sinner. I'm sorry, but you are. You know, Jesus Christ said he didn't come for those who think they're well. He's a physician. He came for those who are sick. We're all sick. We're all suffering from the disease of sin, which leads to death, which leads to separation from God. All of us, not one of us. But I've been made right with God through Jesus Christ. And that's it. It's easy. Put it. Just say to Jesus Christ, I accept your work of salvation, and I accept that you died in my place, and I will confess you as Lord, and I believe in my heart that God raised him from the dead. It's not so just saying we believe that God raised him from the dead. There's evidences that God raised him from the dead. There are witnesses. We read in the Gospels, the witnesses. He appeared to 500 people at one time. You know, this written record, there's more written record and historical written records about the life and resurrection of Jesus Christ than there is concerning any other historical figure you could mention. So why is it we have a problem when it comes to Jesus Christ and accepting him and his historicity, but have no problem in accepting the historicity of people like Alexander the Great and all these other historical figures whose record of the written record of them was written much further away from when they lived and walked this earth than the written record of Jesus Christ was. The written record of Jesus Christ was written within a decade, just over a decade or two from when he walked this earth, and from people who walked with him. There's no questioning about who Jesus Christ is and his historical figure, and the fact that he existed and he walked this earth and what he did. Recorded in the New Testament is what he did. So I hope I've enabled you to, you know, maybe question what you've been told, and and I hope this will enable you to question the worldview that you hold, because we've all been brainwashed, if you like, into a worldview that isn't true.